Hello to all of you moms out there. This is episode 18 of the Solve for Mom podcast, the podcast where you get to use science-based life planning to excel while prioritizing family time. I'm your host, Anoki Kapasi. Today, we're diving into a topic of progress and success, which is so ill-defined for our jobs as mothers. Because as moms, we wear so many hats. We're chefs, chauffeurs, teachers, COOs of our household, but how do we measure success in a role that often doesn't come with job evaluations or clear wins that fit into a spreadsheet? And many of you here are used to having a demanding corporate career, right? You are high achievers that are used to well-defined performance metrics. I'm here to help you figure out how to balance the numbers and narratives so that we can celebrate our unique journey as a mom. After this episode, you're going to have a concrete way of tracking your progress and celebrating your successes. So let's get learning. Welcome to the Solve for Mom podcast. Do you love spending family time together every day but realize that your own interests have fallen to the wayside? Do you have a long list of things you wish to learn but you're so tired from trying to balance it all on your own and frustrated from not planning ahead to make it happen? Have you been mom for so long that you've lost track of who you are as an individual? Hi, I'm Anoki. I'm a PhD biomedical researcher, homeschooling mom, and life coach. I too poured myself into being a mom and thought I had to stop doing the things that I love to do. I was struggling to make time for myself, had lost my sense of direction, and kept second-guessing myself. I wanted to take back control of my purpose and passions, but I kept telling myself there'll be plenty of time for that later. Until I did what was natural to me. Using the methods of a scientist, I created plans to prioritize my values, organize my time, and take action towards my goals. If you're ready to go questing for your purpose, level up your learning, and confidently pursue your passions while still being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this complex equation we call life, it's time to sharpen our pencils and our minds and solve for mom. Hi, this is a quick reminder to sign up for the free Solve for Mom Insider's newsletter. This is where I continue to share deep insights on how to keep up with your personal ambitions and find some independence towards these new skills that you're trying to build. I let you in behind the scenes of how I'm doing this with my fledgling business and even in my own family, how I'm maintaining family time while I get to pursue my various goals and passion projects. It is jam-packed with personal growth tips, journal prompts, resources, and opportunities to interact. Very soon, when you sign up, you will be the first to know about some special offers. So if you love the Solve for Mom podcast, you will not want to miss out on this newsletter, which shows up in your inbox only twice a month. So don't miss out. Check the link in the show notes below and sign up now. We moms struggle to articulate our value and measure progress in a way that feels meaningful. This is especially true for those of you who are goal-oriented, action takers, ambitious. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are that way. You may find it easy to spot success at work, but then when you're at home and you switch into mom mode, you don't see that same kind of progress. And if you do, it's still often hard to define. What is it that you're actually succeeding in, right? This challenge seems to stem from a societal focus on visible achievements, like promotions or awards, that kind of thing. Those kinds of things don't actually seem to translate so much when it comes to personal growth in our mom lives, or the things that we do as moms for our families. What we do tends to be a little more emotional, it's intangible, and the progress often goes unnoticed. Some moms downplay their successes. They view them as just a part of the job. In the workplace, there's often a huge focus on personal development. But in our mom lives, there isn't a huge push for that necessarily. The connection between what happens in our workplace and the successes there don't always have a feedback loop into our own personal lives at home. So this absence can lead to us feeling directionless or undervalued. And many moms struggle to measure their personal growth because there just is no clear benchmark like promotions or salaries or external accolades. Our personal successes often feel abstract, and it leaves us questioning if we're even making progress at all. Some of you know from my first episode that a few years ago I found myself asking about why I was so busy and yet I felt so restless. And I talked about finding purpose. Well, another component of my feeling unfulfilled as a stay-at-home mom was that there was no tangible way for me to measure whether I was making a difference. And not just as a parent, but as an individual who had my own personal achievements that I was striving for. I told you that my days were packed with tasks, but I still felt like I had nothing to show for it at the end of the day. But once I started redefining my goals that were quantitative and qualitative, then I began to notice my successes and started to feel more fulfilled. What do I mean by that? Well, when it comes to scientific research and studies and data, outcomes can be quantitative or qualitative in nature. Quantitative just means that they're measurable and that you can summarize that information with a numerical value. So in research, that could be something like measuring waist circumference. How many hours did it take post-infection to see something? Counting the number of particles. But as a mom, that can actually be things like hours I get to spend learning on new skill, the number of books I got to read, the days in a row that I played games with my kids. And then qualitative refers to a more descriptive assessment. In science, that can be experiential, like the quality of care. It can be relative. So if you have two fluorescent samples, comparing the relative intensity between the two samples, which one's brighter. It could be subjective. Often patients will report outcomes like how much pain they feel. Well, as moms, these tend to be abstract concepts like our mental well-being, your purpose, freedom, joy, or a stronger family bond. And that is why I have a framework that accommodates for the unique nature of being a mom and for personal growth during motherhood. I use the acronym Growth Up. This is a framework that allows us to measure progress in both your quantifiable goals as well as your less tangible and often overlooked outcomes. It's going to paint a fuller picture of your journey and facilitate intentional growth for you. We often talk about SMART goals during goal setting. Those are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. This is a very useful system, and you can use this in lots of different areas of your life, not just in your professional setting, but even in your personal setting. So for example, if gardening is my hobby, I might set a goal to grow one new crop this summer from seed to harvest. I even use it for family projects. I want to increase my connection by spending at least 15 minutes a day doing child-led play. SMART goals are easy to quantify and easy to track. But what about the more squishy things, like having the freedom to pursue things that matter to me, or wanting to feel more spiritually centered, or striving to live a more authentic life? These aren't specific per se. They're not quite what SMART goals are designed for, but they're still important and they're still worth striving for. So how do we know we're making progress in these? This is where my framework, Growth Up, comes in. Growth Up is just my way of putting an analytical lens on something that tends to be more feelings-based and inward-looking. And I'm going to show you how that works. The G stands for give, because it's really important to know what you're giving up, what you're spending, quote unquote, when you're working towards a goal. I often like to think of things in terms of time, energy, money, but there's a lot of other ways you can say you're putting in some sort of risk. If you follow my life planning model, then you have aligned all of your goals to your purpose and overall vision. So when properly aligned, then each decision that we make in our daily lives should be furthering our various goals, and those goals feed in to our overarching vision. And that's why knowing what you're risking by pursuing a goal is an important piece in this decision-making equation. And the same goes for what you're risking by not pursuing a goal when you keep the status quo. The ROW stands for reflect on wins. So this is the other piece of the equation. We talked about what you're risking, what you're giving. Now we want to know, what are you getting? What can you celebrate? And a quick side note, it really helps to track. There are actually tools to track regardless of whether your goals are quantitative or qualitative. So your quantitative tools would be things like bullet journals, habit trackers, or digital apps. Your qualitative tools can be things like journaling, writing about your small wins, You can have photos or videos and document these milestones. This is what I do. Every day, I just have a simple plus minus tracking system that I put in my planner. It literally takes a minute. And then I spend about 15 to 30 minutes at the end of the week just kind of scanning to see if I have more pluses or more minuses from the week. And I also write down some meaningful moments and positive feelings that came out of pursuing my goals. The TH stands for themes. By the end of the month, it's really easy for me to go back and look for trends and patterns, what seems to be working and what needs adjusting, just like you might be doing in a project when it comes to work. It's basically using the same skill set to just kind of look at your progress in a goal. This is also where you can start combining some of the numbers you're seeing with a sort of narrative. I also try to think about which areas of my life my goals are touching upon, such as marriage or motherhood, family, friendships, finances. It could be homeschooling, professional, educational, passion projects, community, my well-being, the vibe in my home. There's all kinds of things. It's sort of getting a holistic picture. And you're going to find that sometimes your goals might overlap more than one of these areas. So just like a scientist who's using a microscope, you're going to zoom in and look at the details and the minutia of your goals, and then zoom out and get a big picture view and see how it's affecting your entire life. And then the up is quite simply upward. You just want to make sure that you're moving towards your overall vision, that your goal and how you're working on your goal is still in line with all of the things in your life plan. This is where you get to track the impact of your goals on your life. And I always want you to be thinking about how you can grow further. What is the next new habit you can build into your life? What's a new activity or skill you can work on? Can you build upon something further or do something better? As I've talked before, this goes along with the lifelong learner mindset. I feel like I threw a lot at you right now, and so I want to be able to put it all together for you with an example. So I mentioned earlier, one of these squishier goals could be something like having the freedom to pursue my hobbies. I'm going to show you how to apply the Growth Up framework. I often find that I do the entire grow at the same time. So when I'm looking at what I'm giving up, I'm also doing the reflect on the wins at the same time. So a scenario could be, I'm probably taking time away from work or family, but sometimes I find that I'm doing my hobby with my kids. And actually, when I'm taking a break and working on my hobby, I find that I can focus on my work and I'm a little more productive. So maybe I'm actually getting time back. So if I'm trying to track this now, then each day I would just probably put a plus or a minus if I got to work on one of my hobbies. And maybe at the end of a couple weeks or a month, I might look back and see, hey, on average, I'm able to spend about 5 out of 7 days in a week for at least 15 minutes on my hobby. And that's one way I could quantify something that's so abstract. Now I've come to TH, which is themes. So I'm going to look at the patterns or any other things worth noting, like how it's impacting my overall life. I might find that when I work on my hobbies, that's filling my passion project bucket. It's actually hitting my family bucket as well because I often do it with my kids. I'm gaining knowledge, so I'm working on educational skills. And maybe it's also improving my mental well-being. Another thing I might be noticing in this analysis is that I am losing a little bit of time, but in the process, I seem to be gaining a lot more. The competency that I'm gaining has been helping me in so many areas of my life, like building my confidence. And the last thing I want to check is whether I'm moving upward. Well, let's say my vision involves something around living an authentic life. Well, having the freedom to pursue things that I'm interested in brings me much closer to that vision. So I would say yes, and maybe I can start thinking about how I can get better at the hobby that I might have been working on, or maybe trying something new to add into my life and make it a little more richer. All right, Mama, I know this was a very big episode, and so I recommend just saving this episode. You might have to re-listen to it a couple of times, but I think it was really important to include the entire framework in one episode. I just want you to know that I'm so proud of you, and I see you. I know that you guys have been working really hard that sometimes the things that you're doing don't feel the same as what you're accomplishing at work. And it's nonsensical to apply the same metrics that you use for professional development to our mom lives or our personal growth that is so emotion-based. I just want to recap what we talked about to synthesize it. We first talked about the problem of how our mom lives don't necessarily fit exactly into SMART goals or the performance metrics we would know at work. So it's hard to know whether we're making progress. But I can guarantee you, you are having successes all the time, every day. And having a life plan will definitely help you with that. But I want you to be able to apply the Growth Up framework today. The G stands for give, and the ROW is to reflect on wins. Together, this is sort of doing a what am I giving, what am I getting analysis, a cost-benefit analysis. There are many tools to track both the quantitative and qualitative parts of your goals. The TH stands for themes. Remember, think of a microscope and zoom in, look for patterns, and then zoom out and make sure you understand how your goal is impacting your overall life. That may span multiple categories of your life. And the up is for upwards. That's about having that lifelong learner mindset, always moving towards your overarching vision and constantly thinking about self-improvement. Especially for any of you that are type A like me out there, even if you're not fully, but there's a part of you that you can tap into, put your mind at ease. I want you to know that all your hard work is not going to waste, that you are making constant progress. So keep at it. I know you've got this. I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe and tell other ambitious mamas about it. Who knows, you might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. Thank you for making my show a part of your day. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Solve for Mom podcast with Anoki Kapasi.